What is going on, boys and girls, and welcome back to Jurassic World Evolution 2. In today's video, I am building a high security enclosure for the Indominus Rex, and I really wanted to make it as high security as I possibly could while keeping it rather simple. But this is rather big. It's not exactly a space saver. It does take up quite a bit of time, and it took me about 40 minutes to build. So I did want to emphasize the high security bit, so right here I'm adding a few little bits to the outside of the enclosure just to make it look a little bit nicer and to also emphasize that this is high security. So if anyone walks into this, when when guests walk into it, they know that there's something big in here. And of course, the Indominus Rex is a very big and very powerful dinosaur, so I needed to make sure the paddock was as secure as I could possibly make it. So here you can see I'm putting in a few little extras around this one just to add a little bit of fence flair, as you can call it. And then after this, I wanted to put on a second fence just to add a bit more security to it. And along the way, I also had to alter the fence just a little bit more just to make sure that everything lined up. But as you will see later on in the video, everything doesn't line up, and it sort of took it a little bit longer, so I had to go ahead and adjust a few bits here and there just to make sure that everything fitted. But right now you can see that I'm building the second layer of fence around the enclosure. Now this is going to serve for two purposes. One is going to serve as extra security, and two is going to serve as the guest section and the staff section. Of course, the guest section is for, well, guests, and the staff section is for the staff who look after the Indominus. To make sure that if it does escape, they've got the necessary assets they need to capture it and put it back in the enclosure pretty sharpish. Now, of course, you could build this in challenge mode. You can. Just make sure you've got enough space. And this is in sandbox mode, where all the dinosaur needs are turned off. So if you do build this in challenge, you may have to scale it up a little bit to make sure the dinosaur's got enough room to thrive and enough room so all the comforts and all the needs are met. I would suggest making sure that all the needs are met, because you don't want the Indominus escaping. So here you can see I'm adding a second layer of security to the outside fence, the same as the inside fence, just to make sure that everything looks as high security as it possibly can. Not only does this make the fence look nice, but it also makes it a bit higher security to make sure the Indominus cannot escape. After I've done this, I start adding the guest section and the security section. This isn't really difficult. It doesn't take long to do. If you sort of take your time doing it and do it properly, you can do this. Here you can see that I'm making the pathway for the making the way for the path, making sure it's wide enough and it's in the right position so the path can fit in quite nicely. And here you can see I'm fitting a gate to the enclosure to make sure the rangers can get in and out quite easy. Here you can see I'm making another pathway, but you can see in a minute that I have to adjust this because it's not in the right position, or I put the viewing tower in the wrong place. So here you can see I'm now putting the viewing galleries here and there, two on each side, and then the viewing tower right in the center. Now I'm not quite sure if I put that in the right place or not. I can't remember. But as you can see in a minute, I will have to make a few adjustments to this just to make sure the path fits through the gap that I made. Here you can see I'm adding a bit more security to the outside, to the in between this. Not only will this act as security, but it will also act as a wall between the guest section and the staff section, meaning that you don't see any of the ranger stations, you don't see the paleo medical facility, and you don't see everything else that's there. And also this makes it look a bit nice, and it really does emphasize to the guests that this high security. Now, as you can see here, look, the path does not fit, so I did have to alter the fence here and there just to make sure that it fitted quite nicely. And this didn't really take long. You know, if you're patient and take your time, everything should work out pretty good. Now here I wanted to add a third layer of fencing, but this bit did give me a little bit of trouble. As you can see that I'm putting a few more things just to up the security factor a little bit, but you can see that this doesn't really work. So things did have to work. As you can see, the fence doesn't really line up, which is rather annoying. So I had to improvise and do it by eye, which is a little bit difficult. And as you can see, the fence did give me a bit of trouble here and there. But everything worked out for the best, actually, because everything sort of worked out pretty well. And, you know, not only did it look nice and up the security factor, but it also made the guests aware that, you know, we do take security seriously. And the Indominus is a very high security animal, so security is a big thing. I don't think Claire really knew that when she was looking after the Indominus, but we do, and we learn from mistakes. So if you're wondering what map I built this on, I built this on the California map, I believe. I believe it was the California map. And I built it on that map because it's a good size for this, and also I think the trees and bushes also make it quite nice. Here you can see I'm adding another bit of fence for another gate, just to make it a bit more secure. I didn't really think about this properly, but in the end I did, and I got it there quite nicely. And the fence fitted really nicely, just to add that bit more security to it. And then I changed the fence to the concrete one as well, just to make sure that if the Indominus did escape, it would get a nice little shock if it decided to ram it. As you can now see, I'm going to add the guest amenities now. It took a little bit of time to get right. So I had to make sure that the pathways were right, and I had to make sure that the pathways were in the right position. Now this side was pretty easy. It's the other side that gave me a little bit of grief here and there, because the hitboxes on these buildings are just ridiculous, and it just means that everything is a little bit off sometimes. But we managed to make it work somehow. I don't know how, but we did. It did take me a little bit of time. As you can see, I'm having a little bit of trouble here putting the pathway in. Now for this I did use a standard path, but on the other side I used the facility path. And you'll see why in a minute. You'll see why I used the facility path. And this is, as you can see, the hitbox is stupid on this, and I just could not get it to work. So I delete some of the path and put it in without the path, which is rather annoying. I wanted it to be symmetrical each side. I'm not entirely sure why. I thought that it just looked better. Put 2 toilets in either side, just to make sure everyone had what they need. Now this bit was a little bit difficult as well, but I had to sort of try and get it as close as I could to perfect. I really am a perfectionist. I don't know why. I think it sort of ruins the builds if you're a perfectionist. I'm adding a bit of ground stuff now and putting the trees around the enclosure just to make it look a bit more security sort of dense. And also it adds, sort of makes it invisible to the outside world, meaning that you don't actually know what's in there. Now you can see I'm adding the staff facilities. Now with the Paleo Medical Center, I did have to create a new bit of fence, which isn't really too much trouble. And it also made it a bit more secure as well, meaning there's a bit more fence for the Indominus to get through if it get there. Now I wanted to make sure that this was nigh on perfect, so it took me a little bit of time to get this bit right, but I got there eventually, and it looked quite nice. Again, just adding a few details here and there just to up the security factor and make it look a bit more secure. And I wanted to put 2 staff rooms in. I wanted to make sure the staff had enough places to rest when they're on their breaks. Of course, with some of this, you do have to use your imagination with some of this, so it's always worth, being a little bit creative. I put on a second radio station just in case the first one were to, let's say, unexpectedly die. I wanted to make sure that the staff had everything they need to make sure the Indominus is safe and secure. And sometimes it took a little bit of time, but we got there eventually. As you can see now, I am using the facility path to fill this in. And the reason why I'm using the facility path is because it's got a very small hitbox, meaning that you can fill in all these little gaps that you could not fill in with the standard path. So I would highly recommend using this if you are filling in something as small as this. But this came out okay actually, and it looked pretty good as well. Filling it in took a little bit of time, but like I said, it's always worth it, because the end results are pretty insane, so it's always worth doing it. And as you know what's going on, I don't actually know what to talk about. What do you talk about on these videos? What did you do today? Do you have any plans today? It doesn't matter what day you watch this. If you have plans, leave them in the comments below. I would love to know what you're doing with your day. If you're working, if you're just chilling, or if you plan on playing this yourself, or even if you plan on building. And speaking of building, if you are thinking of using this in your park, or you're going to make a few adjustments to it, or you're going to create your own version of this, I would love to know if you're doing that, and also send me a link to the video as well, so I can have a look. Because I always like to know if people are making this their own way, and if they're having fun with it as well. Because that's what this game's all about. It's all about having fun. It's all about sort of bringing out your inner child and your inner creativity to create something magical. Don't know why I said magical. Is it magical? Is this game magical? I don't know if it is magical or not. Let me know if you think this game is magical. I think everyone has that one game that they think is magical. Filling the paths did take a little bit of time, as you can see that it is a little bit fiddly from time to time. So I didn't really rush it, but sometimes the paths moved at the last minute, meaning it was a little bit wonky. But you know, everything does work out in the end. Now I'm almost finished with the staff path. As you can see, it is quite a bit, but it makes sure that the whole staff path is filled, meaning that everyone's got enough space to walk. One of the biggest problems that you have with the parks is that you don't put big enough paths in, meaning that everything gets overcrowded, and that's really annoying. Meaning that you've always got to upgrade the paths. So now the pathway is done for the staff pathway. Now I'm going to do the guest pathway. I am going to do it with the facility path again, due to the sheer fact that I've got a bit more space with it. You can see that I'm experimenting with a few different paths here just to see what looks better. But I decided just to go with the facility path just because it's got a smaller hitbox, meaning that I can get into all them nooks and crannies that the normal paths or the luxury paths can't get into. Now this bit was actually rather simple doing this bit. You know, it sort of lined up pretty well for me, which was actually quite handy. I did have a few issues here and there with some of the path, but they all came together pretty nice, which was actually ideal. Now once this is done, you know, I wanted to start work on the enclosure to make sure it was good. Now I actually forgot it. I already had a path there. I completely forgot about that. But yeah, here we are. So I've done one side, and now I'm going to start on the other side just to finish that bit off. I wanted to get it close enough to there that you still had a nice little bit of space there. Now I didn't put any decorations in, but you're more than welcome to. You can do what you want to this. You know, if you are going to use this in your park, use your creativity, decorate it how you like. I wanted to build the basic foundation of the Indominus enclosure, so you knew roughly where, you know, what it should look like and where it will go. And also I hope it will inspire you to create something brand new. Now the pathway is done, I wanted to create something a bit different and just sort of make the path a little bit bigger in and out of the enclosure, just to make sure that everyone had enough space to walk. Now I'm going to add a few trees to the inside of the enclosure and start working on the enclosure itself. Now getting the lake done was a little bit of a tricky one, but I did get there eventually. Just took me a little bit of time. There we go, there's the lake in. A few more trees here and there. I had to clear some of the trees away, just so the ranger can get round to wherever it needs to go. Want to add a feeder. As you can see, it is night time because I have now put the Indominus in. Add a few rocks to the lake just to make it a bit more homely for the dino. And there she is, the Indominus Rex. Once I did that, I wanted to add a few more things to that. I actually wanted to add a log view gallery to the enclosure to give guests a bit more of an up close and personal experience with the Indominus. Now putting this in was a little bit of a tricky one. I had to place it in a certain position, otherwise the hitbox would kick in, which is really annoying, by the way. Getting the path from the other side was a little bit tricky as well, which is quite annoying. And well, there it is, guys. The fully built Indominus Rex high security enclosure. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you are going to use this in your videos, make sure to leave it in the comments below. And if you did like this video, make sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, then tick that bell. I hope you like this video, guys. Have a good day. Take care. Ta-da.